I have had remote viewers view this and they're blind, and by the end of the session some of these viewers are bawling their eyes out.
Well, they were being persecuted. Yeah, like I mean, I can't imagine what their life was like if all that was going on between those times, you know?
Right. I mean, like culturally, they're just from a small village, farming, sheep herding type village, and they're going down in some like structure somewhere on the property or somewhere on the property, and they're receiving messages from this whatever apparition, basically putting all this information out. The prophecy that they gave out was that the Virgin Mary, that was also referred to as Our Lady of Fatima, would appear and perform miracles.
Three children in Fatima, Portugal made a prophecy that Mother Mary would perform miracles on October 13th, 1917. Amazingly, thousands of witnesses indeed saw a miracle of the sun that day. What did they all see in the sky? Is this proof that miracles can happen? What lesser known visions did the children also have that may have been covered up and ultimately uncovered celestial secrets?
I'm going to tell you all about what my remote viewing team saw about the Miracle of the Sun event. And Rob Counts will also tell you his investigative research that shows how prophecy and history combine. Join Rob and me, John Vivanco, on the Metaphysical Podcast for a show that's out of this world. Are you listening to the Metaphysical Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else? Go ahead and leave us that 5-star rating and review. It really helps us reach even more people. And remember, you've got to like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube, Rumble, Ganjing World, Twitter, and Facebook.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
All right. We've got the Miracle of the Sun today.
Yes. Fascinating one.
Yeah, there's a 1917. About 70,000 people saw this this miracle in the sky of the sun, just basically like twirling in the sky. There's lights everywhere, and all of this was prophesized by these three children that had gotten messages in Portugal, basically in 1917, as I said.
Yeah, exactly. They were like three children. They were like farmers, farming families in Portugal, and apparently the children were having contact, being visited by the Virgin Mary, like their interpretation, for a period beforehand, before this big event happened that you said. And during these contacts, the children were given prophecies, and then they were told to like gather the village and whoever else they could to come to this location on like around noon on July 13th, 1917. And the Virgin Mary would show herself. And so people would be subject to something and they didn't know what.
There's a movie that John was telling me about called Fatima. I unwisely decided to try to watch that movie at like midnight last night. And so I made it literally like 15 minutes in before I was like done, because I had a long day yesterday, but it kind of starts in the first part of the movie. It's kind of setting the stage of like what's going on and these children, right? These kids look like they've seen a lot more than miracles in their day. Like, why do they look like they're like 45 years old and stuck in 8-year-old bodies?
They're probably heavy smokers
or something. Yeah, like they've seen stuff. Like this guy in the middle looks like a mob boss, really. He's like, you don't mess with this guy.
No, I mean, the girls have the same like eyes and brow too.
Yeah, like just furrowed brow.
like square eyes.
Yeah, they're not messing around. Like, and look at her, hands on her hip. She's ready to go to battle. Like, you want these
Right.
guys on your side.
Right. I mean, yeah, I mean, like culturally, well, they're just from a small village, farming, sheep herding type village, and they're going down in
They're tough.
some like structure somewhere on the property or somewhere on the property, and they're receiving messages from
Mm,
this whatever apparition. And actually, what's really kind of interesting about it is that later on they became very devout
of
Catholics,
course.
and so when you get to the actual prophecy side, they not it wasn't just the prophecy around when they should gather everybody to this location to witness this event. It was like it was other prophecies, three other prophecies as well. But they became such devout Catholic. I'm sure they were beforehand, that the Catholic Church, when you are a devout Catholic and you're a nun or whatever, your anything that's told to you from the higher up is basically the word of God when you're in that deep in that structure. And so when you get to the actual prophecies, we don't know 100% if they're tweaked a bit or a lot by the authorities in the church. And
There's a
and
lot of secrecy going on in there.
there's a lot
So
of secrecy going on, and we don't know like exactly what was said. So there's an interesting thing around that just in general,
sure.
because there's a lot of conspiracy theories around what was truly said versus what the Catholic Church said about these things. Not just like, see, the last prophecy was withheld for God for a very long time and only revealed in, I think, the year 2000, while
Mm.
the others were revealed earlier. So the prophecies are kind of fascinating, and I go down this sort of thought path of like, if if they didn't have an idea of Catholic faith and they had this experience that let's just say was a truthful experience, how would they interpret it? Right? Why does it have to get interpreted within the confines and construct of Catholicism? That's what I don't. That's what I don't quite get here.
Yeah, authoritative control over these things seems to that's very meddlesome if you think about it,
Yeah.
especially if this is a genuine experience. I mean, the first experience that I remember hearing about that one of the children had was they see Mother Mary, or what they think is Mother Mary. Um, she basically says, "I'll prove to you that I'm real," you know, and she encourages them to bring everyone to a certain spot at a certain time, and she starts crying. Mother Mary starts crying and says, "Please don't offend God anymore. He is already very offended." And then sort of disappears. This is what I remember hearing.
What was this? What like where was this?
This is one of the kids. This is the
One of the kids
experience.
said this? Huh.
That's one of the articles I read. I was just looking for the article. I can't like I was trying to pull it up. I
Yeah.
could try to provide a link, but
No, it's all right. I was just curious. Like I was like, wow, is this a different miracle? I mean,
no.
I thought you were going to talk about one of the miracles where there's a Marian statue crying. It's like been crying for
They
30 years, and then they find these like this little water pipe going through her head.
God, that really bothers me
Yeah,
when they do stuff like that, you know? Well, you don't need to do that, just let them the real miracles happen for real.
yeah.
Um, but I found this cool article that I can bring up. It discusses kind of it's from this website called um
Snopes, was it Snopes?
no, it's called the Catholic News Agency. Okay,
Ah,
but what I thought was interesting about this isn't sometimes these agencies, of course, are trying to prove the miracles. So there is a little bit of a slant, you could say, according to journalistic integrity. But what's in here is really interesting because if you if you scroll down, they're actually talking about what the general environment was like in Portugal at the time. And it lines up with some of my other research, and I kind of want to maybe just discuss it really briefly.
Yeah.
There was a newspaper it's talking about. Okay, so here, this paragraph, it says a few years before, a revolution had led the establishment of the first Portuguese republic in 1910, and a new liberal constitution was drafted under the influence of Freemasonry, which sought to suppress the faith from the public life. Catholic churches and schools were seized by the government, and the wearing of clerics in public, the ringing of church bells, and the celebration of public religious festivals were banned between 1911 and 1916. Nearly 2,000 priests, monks, and nuns were killed by anti-Christian groups. We're talking about the lead up to this miracle of the sun being what you could say something that would severely offend God if what
That's
they saw
interesting.
in that vision was true.
Right.
Um,
That's fascinating.
okay, so yeah, tell me a little bit more about the miracle of the sun, and I guess exactly what happened here, and then I think we can talk about some of the theories that people have come up with about what was really going on.
Well, so with the miracle of the sun, it was also called the miracle of Fatima, right?
Mhm.
And it was obviously the three shepherd children who were basically putting all this information out: Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta. And the prophecy that they gave out was that the Virgin Mary, that was also referred to as Our Lady of Fatima, would appear and perform miracles on that date. I think that was October 13th. Yes,
Yeah, it was. Mhm.
right. So all the newspapers were publishing testimony from witnesses afterward who showed up there. I mean, what you said, like it was like 70,000 people showed
Mhm.
up to
Yeah.
watch this thing occur. So all the newspapers were publishing testimony for them, and so they claimed that they saw extraordinary solar activity, like the sun was zigzagging in the sky and then careening towards the earth, and then also just shooting out multicolored lights and all these different colors. So apparently, I think it lasted around 10-ish minutes or so of people witnessing this. And people are, falling down crying and praying because it's
And
got
there's
this
pictures
whole,
of this.
and there
There's
are pictures
pictures.
of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny because when I look at the pictures and I look at the old films of this stuff, or there's probably only one film, the moving pictures of it, it's all black and white and dingy
Yeah.
and dark. And then you look at the pictures of the kids and they're all and depressed and and you
Well,
just
they
go,
were being
really? Did that actually
persecuted.
happen? What?
Yeah, like I mean, I can't imagine what their life was like if all that was going on between those times, you know?
Yeah, a hard life, definitely a
Yeah.
hard life. But it's such a juxtaposition for me to hear the description versus like looking at the photos and the people, because they just all look super depressed in black and white there. So it was in November, like following November, um, there was a local bishop who opened up a canonical investigation of this particular event. So we went around interviewing witness accounts and whether any of these revelations were like part of or can be put into Catholic theology. Like they were trying to understand,
Yeah.
if people were just having a mass hallucinations like the dancing plague or something, and or something truly amazing happening. So so one of the local priests, I think, who was investigating it, was convinced that something did happen on the solar phenomena side, because there's so many people just reporting the same thing. On the skeptical side, um, people did not believe them from the standpoint of, well, they were staring at the sun for so long.
They're starting to hallucinate collectively, right?
Yeah, basically starting to hallucinate collectively. And So really, like, what this came down to was the church to either confirm it or not, right? And they had to go through basically everything in order to understand this, and that's when the what was it, the prophecies from the children came forward. You know,
Oh.
um, eh, there were, I think, three prophecies. Um, well, four. There, honestly, like, we don't really know how many prophecies there were, because when you get right down to it, the church will say whatever. So the prophecies, obviously, the first prophecy was, or prophecy zero, was the one of Mary showing up. And the first prophecy, now these were given to the children like before this big event happened with everyone. So the first prophecy was the children were shown hell, like a hellish realm. In fact, I can actually read in Lucia's memoir, which was published in 1941. Who was one of the children who witnessed the event? She said that Our Lady showed us a great sea of fire which seemed to be under the earth. Plunged in this fire were demons and souls in human form, like transparent burning embers, all blackened or burnished bronze, floating about in the conflagration, now raised into the air by the flames that issued forth within themselves together with the great clouds of smoke, now falling back on every side like sparks in a huge fire, without weight or equilibrium, and amid shrieks and groans of pain and despair, which horrified us and made us tremble with fear. It was like written by her in this way where it's like she's in it, like she's seeing it. She says the demons could be distinguished by their terrifying and repulsive likeness to frightful and unknown animals, all black and transparent. She said that this vision lasted really just an instant. It was very fast. And then, she goes on to thank the Heavenly Mother to prepare us by showing us, prepare us for what could happen if we don't follow the ordinance of heaven, so they can get into heaven. So that was like the first one, which was really, I don't know, prophecy of hell.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that photo of the kids was taken right after that prophecy, because they sure looked
Right.
like they had seen hell in that photo.
Well, that was the thing, that's, it's like, if you don't follow the teachings, then that's where you're going to end up. And so that was, I guess you can call it a prophecy. And then you've got the second secret. Now, the second secret is like we're getting into like interpretation on these things now, but the second
Yeah,
secret is basically saying that if communism doesn't accept the Catholic Church, then horribleness will befall them, right? Which, fall of communism. So if they didn't accept it, they were going to be destroyed, which, we did see that. I think this was 1941. So, or 1917, sorry. So yeah, right. So we don't know if that was true or not, ultimately, whether it was a true prophecy or not, because we just don't know.
well, and communism is still around, but it could have been referring to the communism in Portugal, which did get kind of shooed away after this event.
It could be Russia. Like, a lot of people believe that it was referring to Russia, the USSR, stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's kind of like I say, it's like I don't really trust what's put out with the prophecies, because I mean, I believe in prophecies. I believe that people have prophecies. I believe that people can
Sure.
know what's going to happen. Now, like, from a remote viewing perspective, we see things from this perspective of before other things impact it, right? Like, we don't see things if everything went through an impact process of it. We only see things from this point in time. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Like,
Does.
when an event occurs, before that event occurs, there are all sorts of things that can impact the outcome of that event. We always see it like before anything impacts it, which means that the future event can be a lot different than what you remote viewed. And so I don't ever take remote viewing the future unless you're very, very close to it as being anything accurate.
Right.
Right. But when you get to prophecy, a lot of that stuff seems to, well, be, oh yeah, that's going to happen, or that did happen just the way they said it was going to happen. And so I always find that interesting about, there is a difference between prophecy and remote viewing the future. In other words, now the third secret is the most controversial one because there are a lot of theories surrounding that one, which people were stating that originally Lucia wrote it down on one piece of paper, and then the Vatican later called it 4 pieces of paper, right? So there's also even conspiracy theories about the later Lucia looking a heck of a lot different and acting a heck of a lot different than the earlier Lucia, right?
What?
Yeah, right. So you've got these sort of things that people can grab onto to go, wait, nothing seems like it's real here. So the third secret of Fatima was
Yeah.
not released until the year 2000, right? Like the other ones, I can't remember when they were released, but they were released much earlier. The Vatican decided we can't tell people about this because it's too controversial, right? Yeah.
I just don't like when, like, let us decide. Why are you doing that?
Right, exactly. I mean, what could be so controversial?
Also, it's not your information to protect, by the way. It's not.
Well, I mean, it was so Lucia, like she wrote, apparently Lucia didn't want to write it down. She did not want to write the third prophecy down, so she says. And they made her write it down eventually, and she gave it to the authorities, and they said, don't speak of this. Told her not to speak of it. And then they also didn't speak of it either. They just kept it under lock and key. So in 2000, well, let's go to 1981 first. 1981, it was, yeah. So Pope John Paul II was shot in St. Peter's Square. If you remember
Right.
that, it's like
Yes.
riding around in the Pope mobile, like the golf cart or whatever it was. And a Turkish man shoots him. He was hit. I think he was hit in the stomach. He was hit in the arm, hand. I think he got shot 3 times.
Man.
He survived that, right? And then in the year 2000, so this is 1981. Then in the year 2000, they claimed that the third secret was on his attempted assassination. The year 2000, they said that. Okay, so here you have like, wow, you have many years passed between the two here, and what's going on here? Like this really raised the eyebrows of journalists, of everybody. Really, like it just screams we're trying to hide something. So here's where I have a really big problem. Like if this whole thing wasn't like some social engineering event for the Catholic Church, then if it's real, they took it and turned it into a social engineering event for them, right? Because only the higher beings will speak to the Catholic Church, the authorities, and be concerned about the Pope when, we know the darkness that's behind all of that.
Please tell me you remote viewed what this third prophecy was.
Not just that, we remote viewed the actual event, so-called
Okay.
event.
All right. All right. Don't go there yet. There's
No, I
still a
won't.
few
I won't.
things we need to get through. But okay, so what was this thing and what are some of the common theories out there about it? So this is kind of interesting. There's people who have been trying to figure out what some possible explanations for the miracle of the sun are all these years, okay? Which I don't necessarily believe, and it kind of bothers me that people are always trying to debunk miracles, but it's still worth talking about. Some of these are still worth talking about. Okay, so some people think the miracle of the sun, like the scientific community, thinks the miracle of the sun was somehow a more complicated version of a sundog. Okay,
Right.
now,
With the
now,
rainbows coming off of it and stuff like that. Yeah.
right. But what I kind of love about that, um, about that prediction or whatever is that it doesn't actually explain how the kids knew that it would happen at that exact moment and were able to get
Dude,
70,000
it's
people.
not just that. It's not just that. It's like you're talking about people who probably spent most of their lives outside and would see sundogs. I would expect people today to go outside and go, "Oh my God, it's the
Yeah.
Virgin Mary dancing around the sky," because they never actually look at the sky. You got to, I mean, come on, that's like the
This is
worst
yeah.
explanation ever.
This is the Snopes explanation of what happened.
Right.
Let's be honest, right? Okay. Now, there's a guy who put in a lot of legwork named Jose Barboza Machado, who okay, it was in 2008 he gained access to the archives to study the photographs. Uh, the negatives on glass were in fairly good condition. He used the photographs to show that the objects in the sky should not be confused with the sun. He also quotes eyewitnesses, and according to Jose, the photographs show the onlookers were not looking at the sun, but at another object that appears to be giving off light. Now, if that weren't enough, this is a little bit interesting. I found another miracle that's something similar, and I actually think this thing needs to be looked into more. It's called the Miracle of the Sun in Medjugorje. I actually pronounced that correctly. I looked up the pronunciation. Lindsay would be proud of me. But uh, there's a little bit. There's more. Okay, so like, um, the sun miracle takes place daily here over the skies of Medjugorje. Most afternoons, the sun seems to zigzag and dance around the sky, move quickly toward the earth, send out beams of light in different colors, and do other strange things. And this happens so often that nobody knows why this miracle gets so little attention. 6 local children reported seeing visions of the Blessed Mary in 1981. Medjugorje has become an unofficial Catholic pilgrimage site. Tons of people go here. Now, this is in Bosnia, mind you. Okay, so Medjugorje is in Bosnia Herzegovina. So that area, actually, after all of this came out, there was a lot of people contesting what was going on in this area, and for a period of time, people were rejected from even being able to go near this site. And this happens quite often. I mean, we're talking about every day. I even watched videos of this, and you can see the sun blinking in the sky. People have videos of it now, so you can see this spectacle in the sky. This one seems like it could be more, since it's happening so frequently, something going on in the area, which could be nothing. It could be scientific
Yeah.
or um, more physics based, but it could also be something that we don't quite understand, like an
Right.
anomaly with a certain recipe of things that we don't understand.
Right, right. So this does this happen today? These like current time?
Allegedly,
Huh.
yeah, every day.
That's interesting.
And
I'll
no
have to
one's
look at
heard,
that.
like, no one's talking about it. No one's heard about it. It's an unofficial Catholic miracle site.
Right, right. Well, when you get into well, I guess I can't. Was Bosnia Eastern Bloc country? Yeah. So when you get into the Eastern Bloc countries, Armenia, Bosnia, places like that, they're really like unexplored the weird standpoint than the Western countries. It's like I'm sure that there are like lost civilizations. Like you can probably do groundwork and find remnants of things there, as well as all sorts of really strange UFO sites and stuff like that that are just untouched.
Well, everybody's wondering what actually happened at the miracle of the sun and
Oh
what
yeah,
happened with this third prophecy. So, you guys at home, this one, yeah, I've been, John every once in a while will task me on something and I'll try to remote view it and see what I get. And one of the first things that he did, he tried to task me on was the miracle of the sun back in the day. And I
I
told him what
did,
I
huh?
saw. Yeah, and I was like seeing the weirdest stuff. Like I was seeing objects like super close up, like almost microscopic. But then there was this one scene that I got of a guy being amazed and looking into the sky.
I
And
remember that. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember. Yeah,
and you were like, "Yeah, I think you got a glimpse of it."
right. You were tapped in. You were on the signal line. Yeah, like sometimes in remote viewing, it be hard. It can be hard to like, since you're blind, you really don't know where to go or what to do, and so oftentimes you'll get the periphery of things, as opposed to like the main event. And what's interesting is that I've given this out a lot. I've remote viewed it myself, and I've had others remote view it, and a lot of people will go to the crowd because this is a lot of energy, the emotions of the crowd. They'll kind of stick around in there in the crowd, and then some people will go to like what's happening in the sky, and then some people will go to what it is that's behind it, what is creating this phenomena. So yeah, there was a phenomena. Obviously, there was a phenomena because people experience something. Now, what was it? Was it hallucination? Was it some kind of natural phenomena? What was it? So, the gist of the data on that front has to do with higher dimensional realm and a higher dimensional being. When you hear of like Mother Mary, it's like Mother Mary is a representation of a very highly evolved, compassionate energy, right? That is what it is. When you have beings or energies in a higher realm, it can create how it wants you to perceive it, right? It can, like, so when you get to the Catholics, they will perceive it, that compassionate being, as being the Virgin Mary or Mother Mary, right? That's what they will do. If you have that same being show up in Japan or China, or a Buddhist in Buddhism, they
Bodhisattva
could,
Guan Yin.
right, translate as Kuan Yin or Kanon, because it's the same. There's no difference, right? So when you get to that realm, that space, it's universal as opposed to we only exist within the confines of the Catholic Church, right? And it's not just it's for everybody, right? Not just. And so what these beings were doing, so when I say beings, it's like, I'm talking about a realm. I'm talking about like, there's no beings, there's only one. But this
Right.
one is showing and giving people compassionate, loving energy. And that's what they were experiencing. Like, I have had remote viewers view this and they're blind, and by the end of the session, some of these viewers are bawling their eyes out because there is such an immense being, an immense energy that begins to come into them, that begins to flow into them, and they know exactly what they're viewing. They are viewing the realm of pure love, the realm of pure compassion, the realm of beings who are so interested in caring and helping others, that they connect into it and it comes and flows into them. So that's what they experienced. That's truly what they experienced, which is absolutely fascinating. Now, so I would say this is a real thing. This truly did happen. Like, they were experiencing this. It was a portal to another energetic dimension flowing
So
through,
awesome.
right? Now it's but it's like put within the confines of Catholicism, but it's
Sure.
not that, right? It's a conceptual framework for it. So when you get to the prophecies, and the only prophecy we looked at was the last one. Now, I don't necessarily I believe that the first two have probably been messed with quite a bit, but the last one was the most interesting because they held off on it for so long. So when we look at that one, we've looked at it a lot too. It literally talks about not the Pope getting shot, because this is not a Catholic thing.
Right.
It talks about a worldwide catastrophic event. That's what we see every time we look at it. We see the skies like kind of roiling, like it's describing something of the skies roiling. It's black, it's dark, which kills a lot of people, which a lot of people die. It's like a major cataclysm, which takes us to like what the Catholics call the 3 days of darkness. So I would say that like the data that we have on that last prophecy references something like the 3 days of darkness. And so here you have this event where these people receive this like amazing energy flow, and then on the back end of it are prophecies for things, one of those being a potential future event. Interesting, because like for instance, when we looked at the sky stone, if you know what the sky stone is, I think I spoke of it before. It
Oh
was like,
yeah.
in fact, it's one of the videos too on Rise TV that I think it was on Crashes of the Visitors.
Mm.
The sky stone was part of it, of some construct of some type of craft which was doing kind of a similar thing, a very long time ago. The sky stone was found in Sierra Leone, Africa, and only in one area. It was investigated by gemologists through the GIA, and it was found to have material properties in it that are unlike anything on Earth. And when we remote viewed, like what was that from? Is that we literally remote viewed this blue craft that was like pyramidal in shape, and it was like God's eye was in the center of it. Now it's like
Whoa.
yeah, so it's the pyramid with the eye, right? So when you get to like human humans appropriate that, it originally actually came from a very clean, good source, but then humans appropriate it, and then DARPA uses it. They put it on the dollar bill. It's like part of our idea of a control structure, when originally it wasn't. And this particular craft was kind of doing the same thing, but at the turn of another age,
Mm.
right? So it was like connected into a higher realm, higher source, and the people that saw that would have received the same kind of amazing, like compassionate love, strive for higher, um, heavenly aspirations, inspiring, as opposed to the self-serving, like you're going to go to hell side, right? So very, very polar opposite thing. So I was doing the same thing, and also warning of a cataclysm to come as well, right? So it's like what we see with the Fatima event is similar to that we've seen that happened a very, very long time ago, probably like 12,000 years ago. That was like the beginning of another age here on Earth, where there's something from a higher realm coming to tell people. And you hear the story of it with Atlantis as well, to give people a higher, like, inspirational line, and then say things are about to be destroyed. So this is what we saw with that. I mean, that was 1917, and we haven't had like a major cataclysm, but
Yeah, I had forgotten that the 3 days of darkness thing was like Catholic lore, but I do recall that.
right,
Um, and this has been talked about even over the last 5 or 6 years, where people are like thinking that's going to happen soon. You know,
right.
of course, this kind of stuff is always circulating around and coming back in
You just
over and
never
over and
know,
over again.
right?
Yeah, you never know. Um, but oh wow, so like we're talking about real events, and we're talking about this prophecy being one that is, again, I find it strange that what is it like? Why keep that from people? Why is the Catholic Church governing what information we're getting and not?
Yeah, I mean, like it could be because they don't want to panic people, right? I don't know. But then again, there have been other so-called saints, prophets, whatever, that the Catholic Church has accepted with those words, that have said the same kinds of things about, because a lot of the 3 days of darkness stuff comes from like future prophets, right? As
Mhm.
opposed to original. I mean, there's reference to it, I think, in the Old Testament or something, in Revelations. But I think a lot of it is coming from the whole mystical Catholic side of prophets who have said
Mm.
more about it. And so what I kind of take it as that, we didn't necessarily see, is quite possibly there's sort of a time frame in there in the prophecy, right? Quite possibly there's something even more specific than what we can get with remote viewing data, right?
Right.
Yeah, because I got to say, like, I'm talking about like 10 to 15. different remote viewers throughout the years have remote viewed what that final prophecy was. And it always comes back the same as being very equivalent to that 3 days of darkness.
Wow.
Now, I mean, when you get into like the idea of what can cause that, there are a lot of things that can do that, I guess. I mean, there are a number, not a lot of things, but a number of things. Natural catastrophe to human made catastrophe that you
Yeah,
can
like an
like
EMP.
insert over it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Well, what did you guys at home think about this discussion on the miracle of the sun? Do you guys have your own miracles that you've experienced that are similar, where you've felt this kind of loving compassion that John talked about? We'd love to hear from you guys, and hear what you've experienced, or if there's another miracle even that you guys would like us to cover. Um, yeah, this has been an awesome episode. John, thanks so much for revealing all of that, and for kind of going through this story with us. And for those of you at home, hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for being with us. And we hope you guys, thought this was as out of this world as we did.